Good morning. My name is Rabbi Chaim Belyok, and on behalf of Friends of Jewish Renewal, I'm pleased to welcome you to a wonderful series of programs we entitled Freighted Legacies. And we're very pleased today to welcome to our program a very unique individual who has written a book that we'll be talking about today. But first, I want to tell you about the panel of people who are going to be introducing the author, Estelle Glaser Laughlin. Estelle Glaser Laughlin is a Holocaust survivor who writes about her life surviving as a young child and her experiences with her sister and her mother. And this book is now being translated into Polish and will make an important contribution in the educational system of Poland. We're very pleased to have with her a number of people that I'm going to introduce in just a moment. But part of our program is connected to the work of Friends of Jewish Renewal, which supports the efforts in Poland of Beit Polska. And I want to first turn to the chairperson of Beit Polska, who is going to bring us greetings in Polish, which you'll hear translated in the language of your choice. So what I'd like you to do, I'm going to ask everybody to first find the button at the bottom of your screen and turn to the button and choose either Polish or English, whichever language is the most comfortable for you, and turn and choose the language that you'll want to hear. And Hania will be greeting you in Polish, but you'll hear English, if that's your language. Thank you, Hania. Go ahead, please.
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for the possibility to participate in this meeting. I am very touched and moved by the project of translating the book. That's what we'll discuss during today's meeting. And what's important for us is to build memory and to renew memory, the one that we don't have, the one that we miss. We miss our Jewish families, of which we don't know that much. So we need to learn more about them. And that's why each such history is also our own history, the one that we are missing. So I am very touched and moved when I see here our main guests and panelists, and when I know that we'll have a chance to read the book in Polish. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Hania. We appreciate all the wonderful work you've been doing as the new leader of our Beit Polska communities, and we appreciate your participation this morning. We turn now to our panel, and I'm going to first introduce Estelle, who is going to be answering questions about her life. And we want to welcome you this morning, Estelle. It's wonderful to see you. It's my third opportunity to greet you, once in person through the good offices of my colleague, Rabbi David Oler. And sitting next to you is your good friend and an educator who will be one of the panelists, Mary Oler, who is an educator, a therapist, and a wonderful person who is also the spouse of my colleague, Rabbi David Oler. We appreciate your participation very much.
I didn't mean to interrupt. I'm sorry. I just wanted to express my gratitude. I so appreciate the fact that my book found a home in Poland where it belongs, because that's where it took place. And I am very touched that history is making a circle for me there. And I appreciate it very much.
Wonderful, Estelle. Let me go ahead, please, and introduce the rest of the panel. So in addition to Mary Oler, who's sitting with Estelle, the translator of the book is the former chair of Bet Polska, who was the previous chair before Hania, Marek Jezłowski. And Marek will be doing double duty today. He will be listening in as a interpreter and maybe doing some work with Barżena Szymanska, but primarily he will be a panelist today, asking some questions after Mary has had a chance to ask. And finally, a person who will introduce a little more in detail, Bogdan Białek, who is with us today from Kielce, Poland. And Bogdan is the eponymous person who appears in a documentary that we were privileged to help co-produce called Bogdan's Journey. And we'll talk about that later. But he is the author of a very important educational process that took place in the city of Kielce over many years, and we'll let you know about that. We document that in the film Bogdan's Journey. So I want to turn immediately to Estelle and to Mary to get started with listening to Estelle and the events of Estelle's life and the wisdom that we can garner from that. If you're not talking, we're going to invite you to mute yourself and let everybody focus on Estelle and the person who's speaking.
I would like to introduce my niece, Fern Zager, and her husband, David Zager. They are right here with us. Thank you. My sister's daughter.
Wonderful to see you.
We're unbelievably thrilled to be here and just so proud of Estelle. And the story that she has to tell is so powerful, and that it's being translated into Polish, as she said, where it belongs, because it really is the story of what happened in Poland. So we're thrilled on just so many levels. Thank you.
As Estelle and I talked about introducing the book to a Polish audience, we thought one of the best places to begin was to talk about one of the most prominent figures in the Warsaw Ghetto, Janusz Korczak. Not all of the American readers will have heard of him before they read the book, but probably all of the Polish readers will know who he is. And in her book, Estelle provides some of her first-person impressions of him and what it meant to the people of the ghetto that he refused repeated offers of sanctuary to share their destiny.
He was the epitome of goodness during a time where goodness was so rare. Janusz Korczak, as far as I know, when I was a child, there was not a child in Poland who did not read all Janusz Korczak's books. I can't think of it right now, but every child read his books, and the heroes in his books were as dear and close to us as our best friend. At one, he was heading an orphanage in Warsaw, and during the ghetto deportations, an order was given that all the children in the orphanage to be delivered to the ovens of Treblinka post haste. Janusz Korczak gave each child a Jewish flag, told them to dress up, and he told them that they are going to go to a place where the sky will be clear and there'll be trees. Some of the children never saw a tree in their lives, and promised them a paradisical life, knowing full well where they were going, and marched with them onto the Umschlagplatz, onto the freight trains, and into the ovens of Treblinka. While the Pole on the Christian side, they pleaded with him. They said, "You are a national treasure. You must be saved." He said, "You don't leave a child alone when a child has a fever," and he went with them. So he was the epitome of goodness in a time where madness raged.
And as a young girl in the ghetto, you participated in a dance performance to raise money for the orphanage.
Yes.
And you got to see up close his relationship with the children. I think that's something few people can bear witness to. Could you say a little bit about how he...
I'll be glad to. Well, you know, the starvation in the ghetto was terrible. Homeless people slept on the street. People covered the bodies of dead children with posters saying, "Our children must live. Children are the holiest things." And Janusz Korczak was heading an orphanage, and our building, everybody in the ghetto who had a little bit more tried to organize themselves to help those who had less. And so the children in my building, we lived in an apartment building, put on a show to collect money for Janusz Korczak's orphanage. And he came with his orphan. I'll never forget. I could not imagine as a child, how can one man be a father to so many children? I knew that he was a surrogate father, but still, how can you love so many children? And I'll never forget the tilt in his body. It was like an invisible embrace, and how the children all clustered around him, even the ones who were a little distant away had eye contact with him. And examples that there is goodness even when the world goes mad. And that was Janusz Korczak. Then an order was given that, and I don't remember if I mentioned that he went, the order was given to deliver all the children to the ovens of Treblinka, and he went with them while his friends on the Christian side pleaded with him to save him.
Thank you. Knowing that there are people watching from the city of Kielce, and they have gone through a process of trying to fill in their history and face the history of their city. We thought it would be helpful for them to hear about Estelle's experience there shortly after liberation, when her mother and her sister Freda were still very much looking like Jewish survivors of the camps. Took a freight train and landed in that city.
So when we were liberated, the war wasn't over yet. We were liberated in January 1945. The war ended in May of that year, and we were wandering homeless, stateless, penniless, and looking for family. We knew that my father had a cousin in Kielce, and we hoped maybe he's alive. So we went there. Of course, we never found him, but we found ourselves on a street. It was winter, cold, we were hungry, and a bunch of young boys with dogs sicked their dogs on us and threw pebbles, stones at us, and adults watched, sat on, and did nothing. And I could not imagine. I looked at the sky and I could not imagine that there was, where is God? Where is mercy? And then down the dark street, a door opened and a beacon of light, and an old woman dressed in black, blacker than the night, comes out, and she looks around and she sees what happens. She raises her fist and she said, "Stop that cruelty." And she stopped the kids from attacking us, while younger people just looked on. And she waved us on to come, and so we walked towards her, and she said, "Oh my goodness, how cold you look, how poorly dressed you are, how hungry you must be." And she invited us into her house, which was a single room with a table and a big oven against the wall, a clay oven, and she fed us soup, and she was the goodness. You know, it reminds me of a Jewish legend about the Lamed Vav Tzadikim, and it says that there are at any time 36 righteous people to save the world. And my father told me that as a child, and I believed him. I'm an old woman now, and I still believe it. And it says that these people are with us. They don't know who they are, and know that they are the Lamed Vav Tzadikim, the saviors of the world. Neither does anyone else, but they are with us. I believe that this old lady was one of the Lamed Vav Tzaddikim.
And we'll do one more question and then let other panelists ask their questions. But this is very much a family story, and all families have challenges, but Estelle and Fredka's parents had to raise their daughters in extraordinary circumstances, and seemed always to have it as their aim, not only to help them survive, but to help them be whole and to maintain some faith in goodness and love. And they were helped at times by some extraordinarily courageous teachers, and teachers who were very inventive when they had almost no supplies to work with. I know we have many teachers watching today from Poland. Estelle herself became a teacher, but like to hear a little bit about the things that her parents and her teachers did to help her and Fredka maintain some childhood and faith in love.
So down this street, I lived in Warsaw on Nowolipki Street, and down the street there was an ogródek, a little garden with a mansion, a beautiful, and owned by Christian Poles, but they were Nowolipki Street belonged to the ghetto, so they had to leave that place. And a family of professors moved into that building who were apparently friends of that Polish family, and they had secret schools, and we attended that secret school, and it was like a little paradise for us. The teacher, we had very little books, but she made us believe and trust and love and goodness, and when people say, why didn't we fight back? We fought back so hard. We had secret schools. We had the Jew immediately in Warsaw. The Jewish community organized itself in a self-aid center, widely spread, and everyone who had a little more shared with those who had practically nothing. And of course, the streets were littered with corpses covered with posters. I remember looking and saying to myself, people must not die that way without anyone crying and anyone. I don't want to die this way. I don't want my family, my parents to die this way. I want somebody to be around and cry and mourn. But there was so much death around us that we just lived with it and remained human and compassionate. And we survived with love of humanity and hope and joy of life. Life must be lived joyfully.
Rabbi Beliak, perhaps you'd like to give another panelist a chance? We have more questions, but I know others do too.
Thank you. These are very moving questions, focusing on people who helped and people who taught and people who cared. Very important. I love especially the evocation of the Lamed Vavnik, who doesn't always appear as a Jewish person, but as a person, a mensch. Thank you. I want to call on Marek Jozowski, who is translating the book into Polish. Marek, if you would like to ask some questions of Estelle, that would be wonderful. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Now, it's not that I have very detailed questions, but rather I need to make a public statement or commitment. Having read the book and having met Estelle, this is my second time that we meet online. Every time I meet, my sense of responsibility and accountability grows, because even though I am I have my work cut out very clearly, I need to do proper translation. I gain, every time I meet you, I gain a broader sense of what this work that have come out of your experience, of your pain, but also of your sense of responsibility to others carries. And I want to say that I loved the reference to Lamed Vavniks as well, but I wonder how they get, how they hatch in the world. And my answer is a straight one. We, when we carry, when we, let's say, ensure that the transfer of experience, the good and the bad, as long as it conveys the truths of human nature and how humans can respond to evil or good situations, and all that needs to be communicated. And if it's communicated, then the next generation can have a chance to consider it. And the Lamed Vavniks are created. Nothing can be done except by our efforts. So I bow before your effort, and I promise to do my bit so that the book gets into the hands of young people in Poland, not just the Jewish community. The project is more important. It needs to fill this is like a piece of Scrabble. We need to fill the picture of the past generations of their responses to evil, and teach and have that as a material for teaching of the next generation, and hope for the best. And our times call for hope once again, as we turn around and see what is happening and see that the heads of intolerant raise up again against Israel, but also throughout the world through the populist regimes, and hence my sense of responsibility and thankfulness to you, Estelko, right? That's how your father would refer to you, Estelka, right? Right. So thank you once again. Let me stop at this and let Chaim decide who should speak next.
Well, Estelle, may I ask you to respond? It's a very warm commitment from Marek. Not exactly a question, but a response, I would say, from the translator.
You know, in order to survive a ghetto or concentration camp, you had to hold on to something, and much has been written about it. So we held on to the good that we remembered. And that is very important to recognize, that you have to hold on, that there is, no matter in the worst of time, there is goodness. And that's our hope, is that the humanness, the compassion, the love. And I felt very, very loved by my parents and by my community.
Thank you.
Love is very important.
Thank you. Estelle, I'm going to turn to Bogdan and invite him to respond. Bogdan has not yet read the book, but has agreed to publish the book. Just to give you a little bit of the background of who Bogdan is. For many years, Bogdan was the publisher of a very important magazine in Poland that would be a highbrow Psychology Today equivalent. And in addition to that, he began a project in Kielce to begin conversation around what happened in July 1946 in the town of Kielce when a pogrom happened on July 4th. And this was not an easy conversation, and it was a conversation that focused around the commemoration of this event that took place, and our documentary actually focuses on the events that took place year after year to commemorate the commemoration. Bogdan is a Catholic, a very serious Catholic, and it was not an easy task for him in Poland of the time that he began to tell his story. And we're very proud of the documentary that he produced. And we're very proud of the fact that the documentary represents a serious attempt by one man with many friends to tell the story of a truth seeker, and very appreciative of his participation today. And I'm going to invite Bogdan to talk with you, to ask you some questions. And he's going to be speaking in Polish, of course, but you'll hear him in English.
Chaim, thank you very much for the invitation, for introducing me. And I must say I am very moved and touched. I can hardly speak. It's a great honor to participate in this meeting, to meet Estelle, to listen to you. What you're saying is truly amazing. It's simply incredible. So after you had such difficult, traumatic experiences, now you are asking us to focus on good, on hope, on love, on trust, on faith. This is really unique, because despite of all the hurts that you experienced, all the suffering, you are teaching us how to love. And this reminds me of my meeting with Baruch Dolfman in Israel, who he said that he experienced Shoah as he was barefoot, he was without clothes, and he said that when it seemed that the nightmare ended, then he was attacked by his Polish Christian neighbors. He was badly beaten up, and he survived only because the perpetrators thought that he would die. They left him alone because they said he's going to die soon anyways. So it took him several years to recover. He lost his sight after the attack. And I asked him, Chaim, do you hate Poles? And he was surprised. And he looked like a child. He had this innocent face of a child. So in this unique moment, this really stood out. And he told me, you know, this never crossed my mind. I never thought like that. So such persons like Chaim or Estelle, they are saving humanity. And it's really important to be aware of that. That Hitler simply allowed for dehumanization, not only of Jews, but of anyone else who, for whatever reason, he thought were a worse kind of people, or they were subhumans, or they were not humans, like he thought of Jews. So he had to fail, because among the victims, you had people such as Estelle or Baruch Dorfman. So those who maintain the faith and trust, not only faith and trust in God, but only trust in human beings, that in spite of all of that, there is still a potential for good in human beings. Sometimes it's an accident or some other circumstances that allow the good to grow, or sometimes they don't allow it, and then evil appears. As we know, evil sometimes grows. And the tragedy of the pogrom in 1946, it was not a coincidence, an accident. It was not a sudden explosion of evil, of hatred. The hatred towards Jews in the residents of Kielce, in the Polish inhabitants, it was growing for a long time before. It was in part done by the special pedagogy of the Catholic Church, of Christianity, that conveyed a reluctance towards Jews, and then finally a hatred towards Jews. So the pogrom of 1946 was not the only act of persecuting of Jews. There was the first pogrom before that also had some victims. 200 people were beaten up, Jewish property was destroyed. So Jews were treated as foreigners. So in Kielce, what we are doing is not fighting against anti-Semitism, because I think that is simply pointless. So what we are doing is to show exactly what Estelle just talked about so beautifully. We want to focus on the humanistic approach that Abraham Heschel described so well. So we want to teach them how to see and respect the dignity of every human being, regardless of who they are, of their political views, of their faith, their religion. Regardless of their sexual orientation, their gender, their age, it doesn't matter. Everyone is equal. And everyone has this divine spark in them, whether they believe in God or not. And this is what we call human dignity. So Estelle, thank you again for giving this beautiful testimony. And I'm really honored that we'll get to publish the book. I believe that we will overcome all the difficulties and we will publish the book. And Chaim also is contributing a lot to help us to publish this book. Of course, Marek also has a great role. He's preparing the translation. But we need such books in Poland because we do not have such resources. We don't have testimonies about what happened after the Shoah. So actually, in this book, Estelle is telling Poles their own history that they are not aware of, the history that has been forgotten, erased, the history already after the war. And there is an important element of this history, namely the approach of Poles towards this small group of Jews who survived. And Estelle, when you spoke, you used one word that is really telling. You said that we had no country, we had no state, but actually, before the war, you and your family, you were Polish citizens. But after the war, you did not feel like you were Polish citizens. And why? Because symbolically, in 1939, all Jews were devoid of Polish citizenship. They were excluded from the Polish community. The prevailing notion in Poland back then was that the Shoah, well, it was not called so back then. This word was introduced by Elie Wiesel in the 1970s. But that Shoah, the Jewish fate, it's a thing between Jews and Hitler. It has nothing to do with Poles. That's what they believed, and this was a very terrible suicidal thinking, because then they were left alone in their suffering. So again, thank you very much.
Thank you, Bogdan. Thank you very much. The museum and the work that you're doing represents a significant step forward in terms of the work that you began with, the educational work in Poland, and we appreciate that. I know that the book and the surrounding testimonies that Estelle has given over the years and this webinar will be a part of that. Estelle, for the last several minutes we've been speaking to you. I wonder if you have a response.
It is all very meaningful to me. Poland was the center of my universe. It glows in my selective memory. Warsaw glows in my selective memory in golden radiance of lilac trees against open blue skies, rich sounds of good neighbors, kindness and trust and love. That was my world. And of course, then it fell apart. I feel that my book does belong in Poland because that was my home, that was my world. And I hope, well, truth is obvious. Even a child knows right from wrong, and even a child makes choices. There is no point blaming Hitler, blaming. Everyone is responsible for oneself. And I am very touched and very grateful that the book is going home.
I'm very moved by what you say, the sense of understanding the past, but not being stuck in blaming, but moving forward. And that, especially in the latter parts of the book, when you come to acquiring an education and building your life, there is a sense that you've lost so much, but you're ready to rebuild your life, and your dedication to teaching and writing. I think it really moves us to see that you are saying this not only from having overcome, but having lived what you are now saying in such a powerful way. I want to remind people that they can ask questions, and I see some questions are coming in. You can ask questions in the chat, and there's also an opportunity to ask questions in the Q&A. I see one question from, if you go to the bottom of your screen, you'll see something called Q&A or chat. There's a question from Judith Raphael. She says, I would like to know how old Estelle was during the war, and also when and how did she come to the United States?
I was 10 years old when Germany invaded Poland. So I was 13 during the Warsaw Ghetto uprising, and my father was a member of the Warsaw Ghetto resistance fighters. He helped organize the group, and I was 13 when I went to Majdanek extermination camp, where the electrified barbed wire fence marked the end of my horizon, and the crematorium was right in front of us. And I was 15, I think, I was born in 1929 and liberated in 1945.
Since we're talking about your age, I remember that you were really too young to stay and work.
Right.
And maybe you could tell about how your family passed you off as being a little older.
So, right. I believe in July 1942, I don't remember when, but the deportations started in the Warsaw Ghetto, where people were snatched off from the streets and loaded onto freight trains and taken away from us. We never heard from them. We didn't know what happened to them. But one woman happened to come back under the cover of night and told us about this horrendous train ride to a place called Treblinka, where our people were guests. At that point, the people in the ghetto, there were not that, there was a small number, began to organize itself into a resistance. And my father was part of the resistance. And I am not sure that I remember the full question.
I believe that children under 14 were deemed useless as workers, and
only those who had a job were permitted to live. The rest was condemned to be erased. And so people were frantic to find a job. My mother, sister, and I found work to repair Nazi uniforms. So we were, and children under 14 were contraband, erased. They were to be deported post haste to be, yes. But I was 13 and I had braids. I was so frightened. My mother cut the braids off and roughed my hair up and made me look a little older. I don't know how much it helped, but and my father was hiding among us, and there were quite a number of people who couldn't find, Jewish people who couldn't find employment, who were classified as useless, but so we called them the wild ones. So they organized themselves into armed resistance, and my father was one of them. And then at some point, and we built a bunker. We moved from our third floor apartment to the ground floor, to the ground level, so we could build a bunker underneath the floor, and the floor below, which we did. And then events erupted with Nazi columns, with tanks and bomber planes, and they threw a grenade into our bunker. And the bunker was, when I walked in there and pulled the lid down, I felt banished. The flickering of a carbide light was my substitute for the sun. The ticking of the clock was the only clue when morning was starting and night was setting. And we sat there for a while until, for a number of days, I don't remember. When you sit in a place like that, some part of you stays with you forever. And at some point, a grenade was thrown into our bunker, and we were dragged out and loaded, marched to Umschlagplatz, to the deportation station, loaded onto freight trains. And my father, my heroic, noble father, was guest. I remember saying to my mother, when I heard it, I'll tear their hearts out. And my mother looked at me and said, that would be the worst thing they could do to us. And I said, what do you mean? She said, because then we would become like them. And that was the last I saw my noble father.
Thank you, Estelle. I'm inviting other questions if there are questions, and I want to note that I just put in the chat for people, the English book is available, and direct people to the link that I put in the chat of the book, and soon we'll have the Polish version available for those of you that read Polish. And I want to mention that a movie that we've referred to, Bogdan's Journey, is available in several of the languages that people may speak, and I'll just put a link in the. There you are. You can view that at your leisure. I want to keep people apprised of the fact that Bogdan is involved in building a larger museum to build on the issues that he's trying to get people to think about in terms of the history of anti-Semitism and how to address that in the educational system in Poland. So I want to turn just for a moment to my colleagues and ask if there's other questions from Mary, from Marek, from Bogdan before I announce that the program for the coming Freda Legacy, or Estelle, if you would like to make a statement.
I am very grateful and very touched that my book is going, so to speak, home, though I call it home reluctantly and with a certain measure of anger, because I was kicked out. So I never felt welcome there, which hurts me, because this was my sky, this was my world. That was the only world I knew. When children, anti-Semitic children, threw pebbles at us and said, Żydy do Palestine, Jews to Palestine. I didn't know where Palestine was. It was a foreign place. This was my country. This was my home. This was the place I knew and loved.
Thank you, Estelle. That's very important. Thank you. I want to read one of the people who's, I think, spoken for all of us. Elizabeth Doyle, one of the board members of Friends of Jewish Renewal, who writes, "Thank you so much, Estelle, for gracing us with your important words, wisdom, strength, and beauty." And as someone who's read the book twice, I want to say that the book embodies all of the wisdom, strength, and beauty in just such a powerful way. And I hope that people will read the book either in Polish or in English. Thank you for gifting us. There's also a novel that Estelle has written that I want to mention as well. For those people who are a little challenged with computers, I want to mention that if you go to the three dots next to the smiley face at the bottom of your chat, you see the three dots and you press on that, you can save the chat. So everything that we've suggested to you will be in your computer. You'll have the link to buy Estelle's book. You'll have the link to Bogdan's journey. You'll have the link to be able to stay in touch with Jewish renewal in Poland, and you'll be able to be a part of all of these important activities that are taking place. I want to remind you that on November 19th, we will have our next Freighted Legacy, and we turn to another kind of reckoning. This is a reckoning through a novel entitled Poland, A Green Land. It is the work of author Aaron Appelfeld, who was a survivor who was born in Romania, which is his part of Romania is now in Ukraine. As a child, he immigrated to Israel and became a Hebrew novelist. And his work encompassed 40 novels, the last of which is entitled Poland, a Green Land. And that novel just came out in English this year. It's a profound novel of great significance because it's about the children of survivors who come back to Poland to understand something of their parents' culture, their struggle. And I invite you all to join us. Our interlocutor will be English professor Dr. Carola Kaplan, and be sure to sign up and be a part of our Freda Legacy programs. I want to thank Rabbi David Oler and the congregation in Chicago. I want to thank Mary Oler, our panelist, Marek Jazowski, Bogdan Białek. I want to thank Hania Gowronska, Spivak, our chair, Dominika Zakraszewska, our technical support. I want to thank Marzena Szymanska for her interpretation. Most of all, I want to thank Estelle Glaser Laughlin for allowing us the privilege of being with her today. And we promise her not only that we're translating this book, but the body of work that has been a part of her speaking to us about the wisdom that she has brought to us. Thank you and good day. We wish you health, and we will join with you in celebrating peace. Good day. Thank you all.
My deepest thanks to all of you, and for your faith and goodness and humanity, and for lending your voice to the righteous. You are all like the Lamed Vav Tzadikim. Thank you. And my deepest thanks to Mary and Rabbi Oler.
Thank you. Thank you.
And my thanks to Marek for
Thank you. Thank you, Estelle. Maybe a candy before we switch off. Candy for Estelle. You will hear the working title I have adopted in the language of your childhood. So your book's name is Transcending Darkness, A Girl's Journey Out of the Holocaust, for those who have not heard the full name. Now, the Polish sounds in the following way, and I will explain the changes, stylistic changes. Przezwyciężając ciemność. That's the main title. That's Transcending Darkness, pretty straightforward. However, in Polish, the girl's journey out of Holocaust came out as Jej księga wyjścia z zagłady. And I would refer to, turn your attention, Estelle, to the word księga wyjścia. Does that ring a bell in some way? Because in Polish, księga wyjścia is the standardized way of describing the book of Exodus.
Oh.
Okay? So that's a
very clever,
fine detail I wanted to share with you.
Thank you.
Thank you. And hope to reconvene at celebration of publication of the book.
Thank you all from the bottom of my heart. There is goodness in this world, and we have to preserve it with all our love.
Amen, amen.
Thank you all.
and my thanks to Mary.